皆様、足元が悪いな。
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to the meeting despite the poor weather. Thank you for coming to Revision 2011 to be hosted by the Japanese Renewable Energy Foundation. My name is Mika Obayashi. I am Advocacy Director of the Japan Renewable Energy Foundation. Since the 311, there is this problem of energy in this country, particularly an attempt to accelerate the introduction of renewable energy is of attracting a lot of attention. In fact, we have a number of experts from international community who are very well renowned in the question of renewable energy, and hopefully that this will accelerate the discussion in Japan for employing more of the renewable energy in this country. And I'd like to now introduce the members from the Japan Renewable Energy Foundation. We have here with us Thomas Kobaria, Executive Board and Chair, and Takechiro Sueyoshi, Executive Board Vice Chair, Executive Director Tetsunari Ida, Business Innovation Director Yoshihisa Murasawa, and we have been attempting to promote the use of new energy. And I would like now to introduce the founder of Masayoshi Son. Mr. Son, please.
Good morning, and thank you for ladies and gentlemen. Should I speak in English or Japanese? Okay, let me speak in English today. I'm so happy that you came for this event. As you know, on 311, we had a big tragedy. After tsunami, we have had a big issue of what do we do about the electricity. It's not just an earthquake and tsunami issue, but that gave me and asked all of us the subject to discuss. What should we do about our energy for the future? So before this accident in Fukushima, I was very ignorant. I was not aware of the issue of electricity. I was not aware of the danger of the nuclear power. But after this accident, that gave me a big shock, and that made me feel so much ashamed that I was not even considering about this issue. I thought the nuclear power was safe, stable, and inexpensive. But those were myths that I shouldn't have believed. Many people thought that was the truth, but now many people doubt about the issue. So this became the issue and subject for not just a scientist or specialist or policymakers, but this is now the subject for everybody, every citizen, including the mother with small children. It is even more important issue now. So this is the subject that we have to all discuss. So I have had a big wonder, what should I do? I actually said to my board meeting, I called an ordinary board meeting urgently, and I said, I'd like to quit my CEO role, at least for 3 months. I said, I can no longer support my company because my mind is not there. My mind is gone from my own business. I have to do something to save people. Especially at that time, we were not sure what was really going to happen as next. Are we going to have even bigger explosion or not? So I felt that even bigger explosion may happen. In that case, I have to prepare to save the people. So I said to my board at my board meeting that I would like to volunteer to resign from my CEO role, at least for 3 months. We had a big fight. It was the first fight that I had in my board. My number 2 guys, we were good partners, good friends. And he and I never, quarrel. We discuss a lot, but, not yelling each other at all in our business life for last 29 years, since start of my company. Or all the other board members that I have such a good relationship with all of them. But this was the only and the first and only board meeting. I had a big shouting board meeting, banging the table, don't stop me, I will be gone. And they yell at me and say, Son-san, you are not responsible. You have to be responsible to our company, to our employees, and to our employees' family, and to all the customers. We have 35 million customers, including Yahoo Japan. We have 60 million customers. You have to be responsible. And we had a big fight. But anyway, I said, okay, I compromise a little bit. I would have to. You're right. I'm also responsible to SoftBank, which is the company that I found. This is my life. All my life, I devoted to SoftBank. So I said, okay, I will continue SoftBank, but I would have to initiate my activity to help some people, even 1 more people or 2 more people. I have to devote some of my time and effort and mind to helping people. So I found it, I donated, and I created a foundation to help the people in Tohoku area, and yesterday I had an event for that. But another activity is to initiate the alternative energy against the nuclear. So I asked to myself, what is the solution? We have to reduce or stop the nuclear plant, but we need electricity, so we need a substitution. We need alternative energy, and that is the solution I thought is a long-term sustainable solution, which is a renewable energy. So I founded this foundation. I'm not powerful. I'm not government. I cannot make decision to stop or continue the nuclear plants. So I'm actually powerless. However, we can bring the wisdom, the knowledge, the heart, spirits, the power of the heart of trying to help people from all over the world. You are the people, you are the blame to change the situation. If we cannot change the situation in Fukushima, if we cannot change the situation in Japanese policy making, I think we have a real issue worldwide. If we have some solution, some change that we can make in Japanese direction, I think it will have a big impact for the rest of the world. So these are the, this is written in Japanese, so many of you cannot read. But anyway, I founded this foundation in August 12th, and we had the first symposium on, that was September 13th, and then here is the second big event. So last event, I have got a lot of wisdom, the knowledge from people from the world, like yourself. Many of you revisited again this time. And I have learned that most of the OECD countries have already brought the FIT. FIT was not in Japan at that time. Feed-in tariff was not introduced yet. So I banged the table. I went to meet with the Prime Minister, talked to the media, and finally, feed-in tariff is now passed the law in Japan. So thank you very much. However, the electricity, I know I'm maybe a little bit over time. Sorry. My passion, I cannot stop. However, the electricity, providing electricity to the consumer's home is strictly prohibited today in Japan. 0%. 100% monopoly by the incumbents. And now they are saying they would like to increase the price to the consumers. No choice. Absolutely no choice. 100% monopoly. And then they say, well, if you want to have electricity in your home, you have to accept. What a threat. You cannot reject. You cannot reject. And Japan is one of the most expensive countries. Right after the earthquake, I went to a restaurant in a nice hotel. And it was the first day that I went after the earthquake. It was already a few weeks, a couple of months. I cannot remember exactly. But the hotel and restaurant, in the hotel, the chef said, "Oh, thank you so much for coming. We are totally vacant. Hotel is going almost bankrupt because no customer. All the reservations were canceled, and hotel in Japan, their business, most important business is wedding and also all the big parties. All of the parties were canceled, 100%, except one. Except one. And that one party that was not canceled was held by TEPCO. Really? This is a true story. This is true story. I never spoke in public. But this is the true story. All the executives from TEPCO, none of them canceled big party. What a shame. Right? All the other citizens says, oh, we have to cancel. We have to cancel. It's no good to have such a party. Right? So anyhow, this is not justice. This is not right. We have to bring the competition to the healthy competition so that at least citizens would have a choice, alternative choice, of choosing safer, cleaner energy. Some provider provide more cleaner and safer or even cheaper, more economical energy against the company who continue to produce nuclear power. And so, of course, citizens have different kind of, idealism, different kind of opinion. So I'm not trying to force everybody for one direction or the other, but at least they should offer alternative so that citizens can express their feeling. Okay? But right now, even though the government said that the electricity market is open, regulation-wise, it is open only to the enterprise. And newcomers are only 3.6%. One of the major issue is the transmission and power generation. In Japan, it is still bundled. There are only two countries out of 34 OECD countries, 34 or something, right? 34 or so OECD countries, only two countries have not decided to unbundle the transmission and power generation. And that is Mexico and Japan. This is what I have learned last time from your knowledge and said, this is the key. This is the key for this change in Japan that we have to bring. I have learned from you. This is something that Japan should bring. So Japan, the amount of electricity exchange is only 0.4%, which is so much behind of any other major countries. So Japan lack all of these issues. So what should we do? What should we do next? So vision in year 2012. We have to discuss and bring the alternative energy and new energy policy. So we have to tell to the policymakers, tell to the media, tell to the citizens, and discuss all together. So one of the crazy idea I came up. This is a crazy idea. So I'm not saying that we can do this. But this is the crazy idea that I dream of. This is the Asia supergrid. So, for example, Mongolia has the potential of wind and solar power of 2 terawatts. So that is enough to cover entire worldwide electricity demand of today. 2/3 of worldwide electricity demand of mankind today can be supplied by, if we utilize the potential power of wind and solar. In Mongolia, we can cover all of Asia and so forth. Of course, we should not depend on one country. There are many other electricity. In Bhutan, it is only 2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is 10% cost of Japan. So if these countries with different kind of renewable energies connecting each other, even today's fossil electricity, we should connect each other. Just like the connecting in Europe. If European can do it, Asians should be able to do it. So I have started this discussion, and so Monday I am meeting with the Prime Minister of Mongolia. So not just dream about it, not just shout about crazy idea, I start making a step-by-step move. I don't know whether I can do it or not, but at least tomorrow we're supposed to announce, but we are signing MOU. So I'm making a step. I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. I created a business. I do the action. So not just dream about crazy idea, but I would like to make a try. If I couldn't do it, after I die, somebody will continue to do it. As long as we have the people with the heart and the spirit to stop dangerous energy that mankind still don't have found a method of controlling it, and the energy which could be too dangerous for all the mankind, or not just mankind, any species. We should not continue to produce something mankind yet has not found a way to control it. That's what I think. The last point. I visited Fukushima again last week, and I have met with the mayor of the city, and he said in South Soma city, which is the right center of the tsunami accident, the disaster in Fukushima, right next to the nuclear plant. It was a disaster and has not recovered yet. But I checked the Geiger counter. The number was better than I thought. So he said, but the farming land is still hopeless. We cannot do the farming. But if you put the solar panel here, the farming goods, even if we cultivate and produce the farming good, people wouldn't buy that easily. It's very difficult to sell. As long as it's branded Fukushima, very difficult to sell. Not just the farming goods, any goods, as long as it's branded, made in Fukushima, it's very difficult to sell. However, if it is electricity, people wouldn't be afraid of the radiation. If it is electricity of solar panel electricity, we can sell. And we can utilize this hopeless land that they have, at least for the next few years, 10 years, 20 years, I don't know how many years. Difficult land. As long as the government allow changing the purpose of the usage of the land without changing the purpose of the usage of the land from the farming into something else, but continue to be named farming land, yet allow putting the solar panel. Then he said many farmers would provide the land for the solar panel. Because they don't want to give up their land forever. someday, I don't know how many years, but someday they would like to come back and cultivate for the usage of the farming. But don't know when. Until then, let's make a use of it. Let's put the panel. We can remove the panel if the radiation is gone. That way, farmers would very much willing to provide the land for the electricity generation. Anyway, this kind of thing can never be done without understanding by the politicians, because it requires policy making and change in regulation, because in Japan, farming land are strictly prohibited to put the panel, even though they are not farming it, as long as it's named farming land. Okay, this is the end of my story, but I really hope today and tomorrow, this is just the opening. I would really like your knowledge, wisdom, but your heart all come together to make the change for the future of mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. We firmly got that your message, your world has changed, and let us change. And I think that I got the huge pressure of speaking in English because since our big boss made an excellent speech in English, but I think I apologize that I will speak in Japanese. それでは次のスピーカーの方。
Thank you very much. Let me introduce the next guest. And despite the fact that he's very busy at the diet session, he was kind enough to come over. We have the Senior Vice Minister, the Ministry of Environment of Japan, Mr. Katsuhiko Yokomitsu. I'm sure that Japanese are familiar with him. He was a very famous actor. And then after acting, he became a diet person. And from September, he has become the Senior Vice Minister of the Environment. Please. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction. I am the Senior Vice Minister of Ministry of Environment, Yokomitsu. So we are here at Revision 2012, New Renewable Direction for Japan. So we have a lot of representation from different parts of the world and from Japan as well, representing this international symposium. I would like to congratulate you for this gathering. And I was very pleased to be invited to come over. At JREF, in trying to convert the energy in Japan, they are working in the promotion of renewable energy. And I would like to first extend my appreciation to their efforts. Now, we have experienced a terrible earthquake 1 year ago. And once again, I would like to extend my condolences to those who passed away and those affected. So it said that it's an earthquake which may occur only 1 over 1,000 years. That was how terrible it was. And many lives were lost. Schools, local governments, municipalities, hospitals. At an instant, were lost. Lives were lost. We were shown how vulnerable we were against nature. There was nothing that people could do against that horrible incident. In 2 days' time, it'll be 1 year. after that earthquake. So in the past year, the circumstance surrounding the world has changed dramatically. Up to now, a daily life, which we took for granted, was something different. We had to once again look at our lives from a different perspective. I think that's the situation we're at. So what we've learned from the earthquake and what we would like to transmit to the future generation, I think we're at a time where we seriously need to debate within ourselves to see what needs to be done. Especially regarding energy. This is the basis of our daily life. So we would need to really think hard as to what is necessary. So with the accident of the nuclear power plant at Fukushima, the government, as a nation, had decided to reduce the dependency on nuclear power. And with that, the new energy plan had been worked upon, and the supply system of energy in Japan is considered as something that needs to be worked on immediately. In order to do so, we would need to come up with every means possible and do whatever can be done. We need to have a strong will and determination to really make it all possible. So in order to enable that, each and every one of us would need to have that attitude, continue to first conserve energy. We need to have that thorough attitude. And last summer, at Tohoku and Kanto area, there were high efforts in conserving energy, and we would need to continue on with what is possible and come up with logical and rational energy conservation from now on as well. And next, what will be important would be to look at renewable energy, natural energy, see how we can deploy and develop that. So we have this theme for this international symposium, New Renewable Direction for Japan. So, of course, as an alternative energy to nuclear power, it will allow for regional independence, and it will play a role for us to be able to secure energy separate from what we had to depend on. So we would like to come up with methods possible to support such deployment and expansion. So the government has come up with measures against global warming, and in the past had been promoting nuclear power. But through the Fukushima accident, that a safety myth had collapsed. So in Japan, we need to start with a new paradigm shift regarding energy, and the Ministry of Environment would like to focus more on the promotion and deployment of renewable energy. So we do have some specific programs in mind. One regarding geothermal. The government, upon promoting renewable energy, is going through deregulation efforts. And at the Ministry of Environment, since geothermal potential is considered to be high at national park sites, we want to see through the study group sessions what can be done to make use of such geothermal energy, because we want to preserve nature and landscape scenery on one hand, but at the other hand, we want to be able to use the renewable energy available. So we want to see how we can harmonize and balance those two different aspects. So we are having study group sessions ongoing, and by the end of this month, we believe that we'll be able to come up with findings from that study and be able to come up with some kind of announcement. And also part of geothermal, we have hot spring energy as well, and we would like to also look at that as well. And at the Ministry of Environment, we have a technology development project at Tokamachi. There's Matsunoyama Hot Spring, and there is a power generating system using hot springs. And I believe that this will be maybe of a smaller scale. This is more of a regional effort, and one example of that. And this system is to make use of hot spring water from existing wells. High temperature hot water between 70 degrees and 120 degrees. So this is to make use of the hot water available and generate power. And after that, the temperature will go down, so we can use that once again for bathing purposes, or maybe that since we don't need to come up with new wells, we don't need to burden the people in this hot spring area, and I think it's be relatively easy to get their understanding. So such hot spring usage for power generation is being started, and those engaged in hot springs throughout the nation are interested in looking at this possibility. And I'm from Oita Prefecture, and there are many hot springs. We are blessed with a lot of that. And at Beppu City as well. So steam and hot water is used to run turbines. A small-scale geothermal demonstration plant is starting from April. So in the future, it'll be for about 400 households as a target, and we hope that at different regions we'll be able to consume and generate a power from that region. And another offshore wind power. So the EEZ that we have is number 6. So we are surrounded by ocean. So having a massive offshore wind scale project is something of a huge potential. And we have deep waters as well. So it is at times difficult to have wind power which lands on the bottom of the sea. So that's why we believe that a floating type of offshore wind power installation could play a role. So it'll be next year that first time 2 megawatt level of floating offshore wind power is to be placed around Goto Islands in Nagasaki Prefecture. So this is a demonstration plant. And of course there are fishing rights, etc., that needs to be handled. But in waters close to Japan, through such experiments and projects, we want to see how we can make best use of such wind power. And also the government as Mr. Son had mentioned regarding renewable energy, regarding the cost of that, a scheme to burden that by society, we are going to be able to start the FIT law from July. And there is a committee to consider the cost calculation and FIT tariff as well as buying period discussions have now started. So Mr. Edano of METI is working on this as well, trying to boost the momentum. We hope that we'll be able to see something before the so-called Golden Week in Japan. So that's the expectation that I have. So I hope that as much as possible, we hope that we'll be able to see progress in the introduction of FIT in terms of tariff and the buying period. On top of this, to have massive introduction of renewable energy, there are other aspects that we need to overcome. Number one would be the potential, and also number two is the unstableness. So we would need to see how we can deploy renewable energy at a massive scale. And whether it's universally available or not, the potential of renewable energy in Japan for wind power and geothermal is in the Tohoku area. But unfortunately, at Tohoku, regarding that supply, the system is not present. So in order to make full use of the supply that is available, we would need to have good interconnection of the power lines. And what is generated at Tohoku would need to be able to be transmitted outside of Tohoku so that it could be consumed in areas where demand is large. So that's what we would need to create. So for this, we hope to learn from you to see how we can make what is available more universally to different parts of Japan. And the second point is instability. And we think batteries can play a role here. And to overcome the instability of renewable energy, to create an independent distributed system, battery development is important at disaster-prone sites. We would like to have a good combination of programs supporting batteries plus renewable energy, and we would like to have sessions to see what would be the best approach. So the government, from the system, institution, and also from the budget, like to, for the introduction of renewable energy, continue our efforts. And we hope that Japan can be a representative nation of renewable energy in the future. So we ask for everyone's support on this matter. So as for the Ministry of Environment, we will do our best. We will use our wisdom to better deploy and develop renewable energy. So we hope that we can have your continued support in the future as well. Thank you very much. That is all from me. Thank you.
Thank
you very much, Vice Minister Yokomitsu. Now, from Abu Dhabi, we have IRENA, International Renewable Energy Agency General Director Adnan Amin is here with us. IRENA is the organization I used to work for, and this time with the presentation of General Director General is a great pleasure for me and a great honor.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Masayoshi Son, thank you for sharing that inspiring vision of change. And as you were talking, it occurred to me that I think it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think that you have embodied that vision, and we congratulate you for your personal commitment. It's only when entrepreneurs with a record of success begin to take seriously transformational change that we actually see the kind of change that we want to see. I was in Japan 2 weeks before the Fukushima accident. It was my first official visit. I was received with great courtesy. I was welcomed by the government. I met many old friends, made many new friends. And it was a very early stage of my tenure in the organization, and 2 weeks later, I was in a meeting in Germany, hosted by the former Environment Minister of Germany, to have a brainstorming about the future of IRENA. Tetsu Ida was with us. And we were sitting in this charming room in Potsdam when the news came, and Tetsu broke the news to us while we were sitting in the meeting about what the events that were going on in Japan and the disaster at the Fukushima reactor. It was an extraordinary moment, and we were all very, very struck by what this meant for the future. And it has been actually a transformational moment. The Fukushima disaster was not only a disaster for Japan, it has transformed the perception of the energy future of the world worldwide. We are seeing everywhere around the world signs of this change. Germany has committed to phase out nuclear at 100%. The referendum in Italy, in the general public, there was an overwhelming rejection of a nuclear energy future. Spain and Switzerland have pledged not to build any new nuclear reactors. And everywhere around the world, we are seeing signs of change relating to how renewable energy can become now, for the first time, a major aspect of our future transformation to come. It's a very important moment, I think, and a very auspicious moment also for a new international organization like IRENA to be on the global stage. It's a moment of great opportunity. It's a moment where public perceptions are transforming, where global interest in the possibility for renewable energy has become at the highest level ever. And it's a moment when a new type of international institution, one that is responsive to its stakeholders, one that is inclusive, that brings all who have to contribute to the table, and that develops new, flexible, innovative ways of catalyzing change, supporting entrepreneurship, helping governments develop right policies. It's a great moment, and we are proud to be with so many of you in this endeavor for the future. Everywhere around us are encouraging signs of renewable energy deployment. Let me start with a few facts and figures. Despite the current financial crisis, renewable energy has experienced no downturn and continues to grow in all end-use sectors, power, heat, and transport, and has supplied 16% of global final energy consumption by 2010. Renewable energy already accounts for a large share of global electricity production. In 2010, it supplied 20% of total electricity generation and amounted to a quarter of installed power capacity globally from all sources. Traditional sources of renewable energy, hydropower and biomass, represent the larger share of today's renewable energy supply and have huge further potential for expansion. Wind power has seen a recent boom in investment, and we have the head of the Global Wind Energy Council with us, and will continue to grow rapidly in coming years. In the medium term, we expect solar power, both photovoltaic panels and concentrating solar plants, as well as biofuels and other emerging technologies, to make an even larger contribution. In total, renewable energy accounted for about 50% of total added power generating capacity of 20%, an impressive change. In several countries, renewable energy represents a rapidly growing share of total energy supply, including in the United States, in which renewables accounted for 10.9% of domestic energy production in 2010, an increase of 5.6% on the previous year. China added 29 gigawatts of grid-connected renewable capacity, an increase of 12% over 2009, and was also the top installer of wind turbines and solar thermal systems in the same year. By 2010, renewables already accounted for 26% of China's total installed power capacity. Denmark, Portugal, and Spain now meet between 15 to 22% of their electricity demand from wind power alone. We expect this trend to accelerate following the Fukushima disaster, as several European countries already decided to reduce reliance on nuclear power and are planning to dramatically increase the proportion of renewables in their national energy mix. According to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, despite the crisis, global investment in renewable energy reached a record of US $211 billion in 2010. Investment in solar outstripped that in wind by a total investment of $136.6 billion, a 36% surge from the previous year, and nearly double the US $74.9 billion investment in wind. China, the US, Brazil, Germany, Italy, Japan were among the nations that have the most successfully attracted private investment in renewables over the past couple of years. All these numbers clearly show that renewables have now moved into the mainstream and are no longer a niche market. Those of us working in this field now hope that we are over that discussion where the lobbies of conventional power companies are able to minimize the potential role of renewables in the future. According to a recent report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, even without these developments, as much as 77% of the world's energy supply could come from renewable energy by 2050 if governments adopt progressive policies to accelerate deployment. Nevertheless, there are challenges ahead. Global energy demand is rapidly expanding. Oil, coal, and gas are still the biggest contributors to the global energy mix, accounting for over 85% of the total global primary energy supply in 2008. The cost of renewables, and let's be honest about this, the cost of energy production from renewables has so far been the biggest barrier to its rapid introduction and wide-scale adoption, even though greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels cause serious concerns for our future sustainability. The good news is that due to growing market share and economies of scale, we have recently seen significant cost reductions. Results from a study conducted by the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center clearly demonstrates that the price of renewable energy technologies has decreased constantly over the last decade, driving prices closer to those of conventional sources. The cost of solar photovoltaic dropped by half in 2010 and again by 20% last year. Turnkey PV systems are expected to drop by 50% by 2020. The cost of onshore wind turbines has become 1/3 of what they were in the early 1980s, and costs are forecast to drop another 12% in the next 5 years, thanks to a mix of lower cost equipment and gains in output efficiency. The world's best wind farms already produce power as economically as coal, gas, and nuclear generation, and the average wind farm will be fully competitive by 2016. IRENA will soon publish a series of working papers on costs and benefits for all renewable energy technologies in order to better inform policymakers and investors faced with decisions on future energy investments. The current economic crisis has led OECD countries, in particular, to look at growth opportunities, new growth opportunities through investment in green innovation. As the energy sector will continue to be a cornerstone of the economy, renewable energy can play a vital role in fostering entrepreneurship and opening a green growth path for the decades to come. Since renewable energy production and generation is generally more labor-intensive than fossil fuels and nuclear power, the construction, installation, operation, and maintenance of renewable energy systems will create a substantial amount of employment in local communities on top of manufacturing. A recent IRENA working paper shows that gross global renewable energy employment increased from 1.3 million to more than 3.5 million jobs worldwide between 2004 and 2010, of which the biofuel sector accounts for nearly half. One study suggests some employment effects of up to 20 million jobs in renewables by 2030. If we are looking for a stimulus for our economy, what better one than this? Let me now turn to your beautiful country of Japan. 82% of Japan's primary energy supply and 63% of its electricity was supplied by fossil fuels in 2010. Japan's ambitious nuclear programs were developed to meet a strongly growing energy demand and to provide energy security, while at the same time reducing carbon emissions and decreasing dependency on fossil fuels. On the other hand, the share of renewable energy in the national energy mix is relatively modest, with a generation from wind, solar, biomass, and geothermal sources currently accounting for 2.6% only of the total electricity production, while hydropower represented 7% in 2010. My expectation is that the Fukushima nuclear disaster has not only affected the whole world, but in Japan it's going to change this energy landscape entirely. 20% of the country's nuclear electricity supply was lost at a stroke a year ago in the shadow of potential disaster. And now only 2 out of 54 reactors in the country remain in operation, as they have gradually gone offline for maintenance and stress tests. I saw, incidentally, a headline in the paper this morning about the review of the nuclear power plants, but it seems that the political courage to make that decision is still, we are far from it, thankfully. While resuming nuclear operations after maintenance, it will be a difficult task for the government and power utility companies due to expected strong local opposition. Building new reactors in the country, in my view, is now near impossible. Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda said in a CNN interview last week, "Our basic stance is to move away from our dependence on nuclear power. This means that we have to try and increase the use of renewable energy in a thorough effort to save energy," close quotes. That is a very significant statement for a Japanese leader to make. To tackle the country's immediate electricity supply crunch, while still committing to the Kyoto Protocol for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, the speed and scope of renewable deployment, as well as energy efficiency improvement, needs to be dramatically accelerated. Japan's unique industrial base and human capital is well known for its high innovative capacity and for its quality products. However, although Japanese firms are among the world leaders in many green technology areas, the pace of renewable energy deployment has been very slow. Japan has invested heavily in research and development for solar technologies since the oil shock of the 1970s and was once the largest producer of PV cells. The development of energy storage technologies is also a high national research and development priority as the key to success of distributed energy systems, smart grids, and electric vehicles. While visiting some of the country's renewable energy sites myself last year, such as the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries wind turbine factory and the Panasonic Smart Community Showcase, I have noticed that while the capability in the renewables field seems tremendous, It hasn't been utilized as extensively as it could be and hasn't been really factoring into a new strategy for entrepreneurship to make Japan competitive for the future. Strong barriers to the adoption of alternative resources exist in the current energy supply system. Regional monopolies, and I think Son-san mentioned that this morning, control 97% of the electricity generation and transmission market. While interconnectivity across regions holds part of the key to greater deployment, energy utilities have also been concerned about the reliability of electricity supply, which includes high shares of variable renewables, and have therefore been reluctant to give renewables a priority access to the grid. Full cost pricing for electricity generation has guaranteed a stable energy supply for industrial development, but electricity prices remain high as there is little incentive to cut costs. However, since Fukushima, the public has been calling for greater transparency and engagement of a wider group of stakeholders in future energy policy and decision-making. Under such circumstances, a significant step was taken last year when Japan's Diet passed a law obligating regional power utilities to purchase all the electricity generated from wind, solar, geothermal, or biomass operations at fixed prices, thereby establishing feed-in tariffs. Once the law goes into effect in July this year, it will lower investment risks and ensure short-term returns as far as the stability and predictability of government support is guaranteed, while tariffs are set at levels which are neither too low for operators to make profits, nor too high to create investment bubbles. This law represents a major milestone in the reformulation of Japan's energy policy, and I was not surprised to hear this morning of the important role that Mr. Son has played in this development. Renewable energy in Japan currently enjoys tremendous support from the general public. Transforming this enthusiasm into reality is a challenge, but also a wonderful opportunity. Impressive research and development investment, excellent industrial capability, and human capital are already available in Japan, but they must be oriented towards delivering sustainable solutions, allowing the country to position itself as a global leader in green innovation and green growth. IRENA is ready to support Japan's every effort in broadening the deployment of renewable energy, in particular for the reconstruction of the Tohoku region. We are already taking part in a number of collaborative projects with Japanese ministries and public agencies, working with the NEDO in the area of smart grids and green cities, and in the development of the global solar and wind atlas, among others. IRENA also welcomes open dialogue with Japan's national and local governments at every level and with stakeholders in business, academia, and civil society. This is a special year. This year marks the International Year for Sustainable Energy for All, as established by the General Assembly of the United Nations. And this year we will have the Rio Plus 20 Conference on Sustainable Development, which takes place in June. With the global population projected to reach 10 billion by 2050, renewable energy sources are needed to make a significant contribution to the growing demand for energy, while improving the quality of life for the world's poor. Japan's experience, best practices, and lessons in the renewable energy field could greatly help many other countries, particularly by showing how investment in technology can ignite innovation and subsequent development in renewable energy systems. Effective technology and knowledge cooperation with emerging and developing countries will create a new growth opportunity for the Japanese private sector, and we hope in IRENA to be able to facilitate such mutual learning processes. Given its technological resources and the firm determination of the people, I am fully convinced that Japan can regenerate the devastated areas in Tohoku by deploying the best available advancements in infrastructure, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and smart grids. The initiative to build a sustainable society through reconstruction have already seized the imagination of the global community and will set a positive example on what is possible for a clean energy future. In conclusion, let me say that in my fairly intense engagement with Japan over the last year, it's very clear to me that the human capital, the knowledge, the technical ability, and the infrastructure exists. What I was waiting to see, where is the spark of entrepreneurship and a little bit of sense of adventure on where you can go with this. And I was very inspired to hear this morning the vision that Mr. Son has. It is only when you can think in big ideas, transformative ideas, that you can make that change. And I am delighted to be here for that reason. I see the emergence in Japan today, a new thinking for the future, and I am here to assure you that we will be your full partners in this effort in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
ハミン事務局長、大変ありがとうございました。それではここでちょっと一旦フォトセッションをしたいというふうに思います。まず基調講演のスピーカーの方々と財団の関係者の方々、写真を撮りますので、ステージの方にお願いいたします。We will start the small photo session. The speakers of the plenary, first plenary, and also the directors of the foundation, please go up the stage.
Thank you very much. This is the end of the photo session. I'd like to now proceed. Thank you. We'd like to now introduce the next speaker. We have the Director General National Energy Authority of Iceland, Professor Gudruni Hannesson.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Son and Excellencies, it's a real privilege for me to come here from Iceland all the way to speak to you about energy and our possible common interest in that area. I'm director for the National Energy Authority in Iceland, and I'm probably the luckiest energy director in the world because I only have to license renewable energy plants. In Iceland, the situation is that all stationary energy is renewable. 81% of primary energy is from renewables, and geothermal contributes 66% of the primary energy. And this is the highest ratio in the OECD and probably in the world. But we still need oil for about 90% of the primary energy demand, about half of it to operate the fishing fleet and the other half for the motor vehicles we like to have in our private life. 88% of houses are heated from geothermal sources. And we can look at the development of the renewable energy of the energy use in Iceland. And what we see is that from the 1940s we started using oil, which has been gradually been replaced by geothermal and hydropower, and now the largest part of our primary energy use is from hydropower, but the biggest part is from geothermal, and that is due to all the heating we have from the geothermal. And it's all about geology. We are in Iceland in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, placed between Europe and America, and we are being split apart by 1 or 2 centimeters per year. We see those cracks opening in the ground, and this is filled by magma. Gradually we have volcanic eruptions. We have also magma chambers in the crust where we have sources of geothermal energy. And the red dots you see in the so-called volcanic zone, they are high temperature sources, 250 to 350 degrees, and the small blue dots or gray dots you see in the old rock, these are older and colder geothermal sources. Everything under 160 degrees is considered as low temperature in Iceland. The geothermal energy flow, it comes from magma coming into the crust. It comes with conduction into the crust, and we have a steady flow of geothermal energy through the surface, going to volcanism, to geothermal energy, and conduction to the surface. And we expect a continuous stream to be about 7 gigawatts in Iceland. But if we look at in the center of the Sankey diagram, we see that our present storage in the rock is enormous, so that we have been piling up for several tens of thousands of years energy that we can use. Now, using low temperature for heating is very painless, we might say. The small shacks which are surrounded by the white circles, they are boreholes in the center of the city of Reykjavik. Reykjavik is placed on a huge geothermal reservoir, and we drill there and we get up the water, and then it's collected into reservoir tanks on high hills and then distributed out to the city. So that, the city is totally heated by geothermal energy. But apart from the heat, to heat the houses, we can also use the high temperature heats like in this power plant for generating electricity. And this is the growing sector in Iceland now. And we see that from the beginning, we started in small scale with hydropower, but now we have increased our production of electricity, and we are more and more going over to use geothermal sources for electricity production. So we see that we have almost an exponential growth in production of electricity, and we are far beyond what we need for the normal community. Today, our general use for the general community is 3,000 gigawatt hours or 3 terawatt hours, but we are delivering 12.5 terawatt hours or 12,430 gigawatt hours to the large industries. And about 3/4 of this is today coming from hydropower, and about 25% is coming from geothermal power. The geothermal potential is, however, large, and we expect this proportion of geothermal will increase. When this figure was made, we are 100 more megawatts now in geothermal. We were a little bit below the total production of Japan, but now we have passed Japan in total production of electricity from geothermal. We hope that Japan will join us in this race in the coming years. We also have to point out for this production of renewable energy that there have been no subsidies, and there will be no subsidies of renewable energy in Iceland. It's totally commercial and totally competitive. And just to show what happened in the 70s, when we started to see that the oil prices were going up, and we decided to build up our district heating systems. And we see that recently we are up to 90% coverage from geothermal of heating of houses in Iceland. And then we have to remember that this is a country of 103,000 square kilometers with only 330,000 inhabitants. So we have a very distributed system. The longest pipeline from the source to the furthest consumer for hot water is 63 kilometers. And this has also been very profitable. We see that geothermal is lowest on the scale for the heating cost, and we are not subsidizing renewable energy in Iceland. We are subsidizing oil heating in Iceland because we have some unfortunate people that still have to heat with oil, and they are paying so much that they couldn't they couldn't survive if we were not subsidizing them. And we see also the development of the cost of geothermal energy. It's the blue columns, and the cost for heating with oil with the same quantity, it's the red columns. And we see that over the time we have earned a lot of money by going into geothermal and district heating systems. And we are saying that we are earning our every year we are earning 1/10 of our gross domestic product. And we also see that the development, we see that we have the geothermal heat is the blue line, electricity is the red line, and GDP, the gross domestic production, is the green line. And we see that renewable energy and economic growth, they go very well together. We have had a little bit of increase per capita in the oil, but that is because we have been increasing our living standard by these good energy sources, and that makes people buy more and bigger cars. So that is going to have to be changed. We are now developing our geothermal systems. We've been drilling to 2 kilometers depth, but we are increasing this to 5 kilometers, trying to reach for water or fluids, supercritical fluids with much more power. So a deep drilling hole should give 50 megawatts compared to 5 megawatts for a normal high heating hole. This is a development we hope it's in the future, but this could change the picture of what you can get from geothermal. We see that our geothermal energy is used for space heating, for electricity, but it's also used for swimming pools, outdoor swimming pools, for snow melting, for industry, fish farming, and for greenhouses. And this is affecting our lifestyle. It makes life in Iceland much more enjoyable when we have these sources, because we have this cascading use, that we have geothermal power production, then we have heating of the houses, and then we have the spas and the onsen and the fish farming and growing vegetables, which are making our food table richer. And this is a very important part of our everyday life, being able to swim outdoors every day of the year. And also, we like to have our own geothermal riviera with pipes in the sand and the overflow from the heating system of the town into the small bay there, so we can imagine that we are somewhere in the Mediterranean, even if we are at 64 North. This is probably the only bathing beach in the world so far north. And also with the geothermal water, we get a lot of chemicals which which we can use. Mostly we are now using the silica and some compounds which are very good for the skin, especially for psoriasis patients, and people come to enjoy this luxury in the onsens of Iceland. And we also have to work on how we bring this electricity into cars or mobile use. We have been looking at several possibilities, biofuels and recycled carbons. These are projects concerning DME that we have been doing together with Mitsubishi, feasibility studies. We have been studying the hydrogen cycle, and we've been looking at batteries. And we are then considering infrastructure, cost efficiency, environmental efficiency, and mobility. And these are all parameters that will affect how fast and successful the market introduction of those solutions will be. But as you see, what we hope advances in technology will become very important for Iceland. And here is one of our big problems, is that the Icelandic countryside is so beautiful that it's very difficult to put down power plants without destroying some scenery or something. And this means that we have made this master plan, we have taken all the remaining energy plant options. The red spots are geothermal power, the blue spots are hydropower, and we are ranking them for the environmental feasibility. And this is the same problem as you are facing here in Japan, that geothermal energy and beautiful sceneries often go together. And we see the result from our master plans. We are now using about 12.5 terawatt hours of electricity from hydropower and 4.5 from geothermal. We have now allocated for development about 12 terawatt hours more, and we see that they are mostly geothermal. So we can increase our potential to 30 terawatt hours. And then we have reserved for protection about 24 terawatt hours. It's a lot of energy, but it's a very beautiful country. And we are awaiting for further consideration is about 10 terawatt hours. So we have a lot of options to work on still. And we are very proud that we have been running in Iceland, in my institute actually, the United Nations University Geothermal Training Program, training students from all over the world, but only from developing countries, I'm sorry to say, or glad to say, but this is the limitation. But we have also other educational facilities. And the global potential is very interesting. We have more than 160 gigawatts of geothermal power, and this will draw an investment of about $600 billion US. And we can say that the Japanese strong contribution on key technologies and scientific work is of major importance for advancing the geothermal energy worldwide. And my conclusion is that the Icelandic example, it shows how combination of Icelandic development work and Japanese turbine technology, which we have been using in Iceland, has created highly competitive solutions, not only for generation of electricity from renewable energy sources, but also for the general market. The environmental concerns have to be taken seriously, even for renewable energy use. And the Icelandic Master Plan project gives an example how this can be fulfilled on a national scale. The International Research Corporation aims at new exploration techniques, improved drilling economy, increasing permeability and capacity, reservoir physics and management, deep drilling for high enthalpy fluid, improved reservoir management and induced seismicity. The Blue Lagoon in Iceland is a very good example how high temperature geothermal electricity generation and a successful onsen activity can coexist in a cascading operation. And finally, as I said before, the Japanese strong contribution on key technologies and scientific work is of major importance for advancing the geothermal energy worldwide. So I look forward to a fruitful cooperation between Iceland and Japan in this field. Domo arigato.
Dr. Professor Johansson, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. Next will be Mr. Puntsak Tsagan, who is the Senior Advisor to the President in charge of Energy and Mineral Resources. Mongolia is blessed with a very wide landmass and a beautiful scenery. So, Mr. Puntsak Tsagan.
Minasan ohayou gozaimasu.
Good morning, everyone.
And gentlemen, honorable participants of today's conference. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude for inviting to this very important and timely conference on renewable energy. Since I'm representing the government of Mongolia, I have obligation to say a few words about this relationship between our countries. Just last month in February, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relationship between Mongolia and Japan. And as many of you may know, our two countries have relations of very close relations, I would say even special relations, and because since Mongolia moved to democracy and market economy in 1990s, the Japan has rendered enormous aid and assistance to Mongolia and Mongolian people, and it exceeds the total aid and assistance provided by all other nations and international organizations combined. Therefore, we, Mongolia, value our relationship with Japan, and we consider Japan our very important third neighbor country. As you may know, Mongolia is a country sandwiched by Russia and China. And Mongolia was also, I would like to reiterate that Mongolia was one of the first countries immediately reacted on last year's tsunami disaster in Japan. And so therefore, actually the relationship of our two countries is entering a new level of cooperation because Mongolia is a new democracy, a new fast developing nation, and no need to be surprised that last year our GDP grew 17%. It is one of the highest growth in the world, and this year our economy will grow higher than 17, around 18 or 19%, and this hyper-growth trend will be sustained in a few years to come, thanks to the foreign investment and also conducive world market. And Mongolia is today is ranking 26 by this World Bank Doing Business indices out of 183 countries. So what I'm trying to tell that one of the reasons of our success was inclusion or invitation or investment of foreign direct investment into Mongolia. And also I prepared a few slides about Mongolian electricity and this composition and the solar power potential. And Mr. Masayoshi-san, I think convinced you about Mongolia's renewable potential much better than me in a very short ways, because just to add what was told by Mr. Son, only the wind potential without including solar power, Mongolia, if harness all this potential of this solar wind, we can provide meet the whole demand of China in electricity. So if we add on top of that solar and geothermal potentials, really, truly, Mongolia has a great potential is concerned renewable energy. And this is a map produced as a result of the Asian Development Bank and Mongolian Renewable Energy Center. So you see it's 1.1 tera megawatt of wind electric potential. It's more than China. So it's a hydro energy resource of Mongolia, but it is just the beginning, starting, and we have so far only 2 hydropower stations, just starting. And geothermal power potential, we have over 40 hot springs. And in addition to that, we are introducing geothermal heating in a cooperation with a German company, Wisman, in a pilot house, kindergarten, school, and private house, starting just a few years ago. And this is actually, we have a good renewable energy law in line with principles of German law, and also we have a renewable energy program. And all these slides will be given to you. But I would like to share my personal thoughts with you concerning this renewable energy. I think renewable energy is it's a kind of, I would say, gift of God and nature for the mankind, for all nations, without depending on their level of development. And I would like to share with you how the renewable energy is helping in solution of long persistent economic social problems in developing countries like Mongolia. We have a very large territory, 1.6 million square kilometer land, and we have less than 3 million people, and out of the 3 million, 500,000 are still nomads. And just a couple of years ago, many of these nomadic people lived like in a medieval age, lighting the candle and burning the lamp oil. But the Mongolian government launched a program called 100,000 solar gear. It's a yurt, or 100,000 solar house project in 1999, 13 years ago. And thanks to the project nowadays, thanks to this renewable energy application, the nomadic people call by using the cell phone, not only within the country to abroad, including Japan or North America, Europe, where are their relatives or children live, work, and study. And also they watch TV. And so you can imagine how these minor changes, I would say, has means for the quality of nomadic people and their children's education and future. Even today, the children of rural people are becoming exposed to the pop, art, culture, and actually the solar energy and panel energy is playing a kind of bridging role, connecting Mongolia with outside the globalizing world. It's concerned this is solar. And it's concerned wind power. I think today or tomorrow during the conference, a friend of mine from Mongolia, CEO of Newcom, which is a renewable energy leader, Mr. Bemsakan will speak about how the private companies working hard to build the first ever wind farm, 50 megawatt in Mongolia. So it's close to the completion. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the Asian supergrid idea proposed by Mr. Masayoshi Son is not only offering the solution alternatives to this energy security of the region, also I think it will have more impact on forging and the trust, friendship, and cooperation among the Asian nations who have even bitter history and still many differences. And so therefore, since Mongolia is a fast developing democratic country and a vibrant democratic country, welcomes this grand idea of this establishment of the Asian supergrid to connect these nations, or I would say directly to connect Mongolia and Japan, VIA, Korea, and China. And we will be very much honored and happy a part of this big grand project as we can. But as you know, the developing countries like Mongolia, they lack their own technology and advanced technologies concerning the renewable energy. So therefore, we usually used to import, and I think we are going to continue to import. So therefore, the free trade and the open talks and the broad discussion and collaboration between governments, businesses, and scholars will make the Asian grid super grid project is a modern 21st Silk Road connecting different nations. And also, I would like to add just to sell about the potential of energy potential of Mongolia. The Western mining community And the investors like to call Mongolia as the Saudi Arabia of coal. But it might look true because our proven reserves of coal is 160 billion ton. 160 billion ton. But instead of them, I would prefer to call Mongolia as a Saudi Arabia of renewable energy, solar and wind power. That might look much more proper after the tsunami and this Fukushima nuclear accident. And also, in conclusion, I would like to emphasize that the disaster was, last year's disaster in Japan was a very strong wake-up call for all of us to think of and to find a proper solution to this energy security issue, more reliable, clean. And following these developments, the Mongolian government is reviewing the nuclear energy law, among other minerals-related laws, also made amendments to this renewable energy law to promote, to encourage investment in renewable energy sector. So this is just an example of a small country which can benefit from the renewable energy. And I have this daily Yomori newspaper published yesterday, and it contains an information comparison of power rates, power charges in different countries. And according to this data, Germans pay 32.5 cents, and the Japanese pay 23.2 cents, US dollar per kilowatt, including the taxes. But according to one survey in Mongolia carried out about this cost estimation of the building a mega solar plant in a Mongolian Gobi desert. And according to that survey, the cost of building, producing 1 kilowatt electricity will be approximately 9 cents. So it is more than 2 times than the current Japanese pay or price, which is going to increase, by the way. So therefore, in conclusion, I would like to encourage you and to invite you to come to Mongolia, and this southern part of Mongolia, the Gobi Desert. It is actually not desert. It is there are animals, wild animals, even there are nomadic people, and you will be very much surprised by seeing a caravan of camel carrying solar panel and satellite dish, because they move at least 3 times during the year. But so our rural Mongolians understood and benefit the renewable energy much before our urban residents. So therefore, I call the renewable energy as a gift of all mankind. So now our homework is how to mobilize our resources and how to empower our people who will make the governments to think differently and to work to cooperate differently. So thank you very much.
佐川さん、どうもありがとうございました。それでは次にデンマークサムソトエネルギーアカデミー教授のゾーレン・ハーマンセンさんご紹介したいと思います。ゾーレンさんはデンマークのサムソトで本当にその市民の手による自然エネルギーの導入というのをなさっていらっしゃる方です。ゾーレン、you have floor.
So thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, Japanese Renewable Energy Foundation, Stefan, Tetsu, Mika, and Mr. Sonsan. It's a pleasure to be here again. I was speaking here last time there was a meeting in the Japanese Renewable Energy Foundation, and maybe I didn't do a good enough job to explain myself, so I need to be back and do it one more time. I hope I'll do it better this time. But I'm from a country where we didn't have a nuclear power disaster. Well, we had the oil crisis in the 70s, and we saw the Sellafield, we saw the 3 Mile Island, and we considered how we were going to formulate a new policy in Denmark after that. And finally, in 1985, we decided not to have nuclear power in Denmark. And in 1986, Chernobyl exploded. From then on, I think we were on the green track trying to find out how we could improve the Danish energy systems by having decentralized energy systems, district heating, wind power, and solar energy, and try to encourage the manufacturers of these installations to be better and to be able to supply the Danish energy system with a variety of different things. That led to a project, which is what I'm going to talk about here, namely an island project where we wanted to demonstrate that it was possible by the means of proven technology and by the means of today's policy and subsidy programs, and by the means of what was then called widespread public participation, whatever that is, but I'll try to explain that later maybe, to make a 100% transition to renewable energy in a time span of just 10 years, which was the ambition. So when we started this project, nobody really believed that we were going to realize it. I mean, Samsø is just an average place in Denmark with a farming community, a little fishing community, some tourism, stuff like that. And people are like normal people in rural areas, a little conservative. So they thought, this is going to be complicated. It's probably also going to be very expensive, so leave me out of it. But now, 10 years later, we have actually fulfilled the program, and we are producing more energy than the entire island is consuming. So we can say that we are more than 100% self-supplied by renewables. And the interesting thing is that the local islanders, they own these facilities. All the investment is done by local investors. We don't have a top-down system or a utility who actually finance this. But we bought it ourselves, and we are running it ourselves, and whatever profit we get out of it stays on the island, which is the great improvement of this project, that we actually succeeded in the transformation. But what is even better, we made new jobs. We had what is called a green growth from this, and kind of a new prosperous future for the island. Because we are a vulnerable place, like many places in Japan. In the rural areas, young people, they move away, and it's very difficult to keep activities and to keep the momentum in these areas, because industry have a tendency to follow the main road and be alongside the highways or in the cities. And it's very difficult to keep them out there in the countryside. I've been speaking to many different places in Japan, from Iwaishima to Hokkaido, and they have the same concerns as we have on Samsø, namely how do we keep activities in the local area so we can have a job and a life here, which is interesting. Green growth is maybe one of the answers. So we can say that we had to define ourselves in this transition. The interesting thing is the definition of what we do is maybe also where we are and what we are. So where we are is interesting. We like to think that we are the center of Europe, which is more or less true. You can see we are the center of Europe. We might like to think also we are the center of the earth. I don't know if you agree with us over here in Japan, but I think we are the center of the earth. We can discuss this later at lunchtime, but maybe we can fight a little bit, but I will insist that we are the center of the earth. But maybe we are just the center of our own life. And maybe that is the most interesting finding here, that where we are is the center of the next wise decision or the next step towards a more sustainable development. So we formulated this. This is the shape of my island. You can see it's actually more or less 2 islands. Yesterday I asked some people where they came from, if they came from Hokkaido or if they came from Kyushu or some of the southern parts. And there were differences here. And they said, are you the same people? Yes, they thought they were the same people. We are both Japanese, but are you the same people? And they had to admit, maybe not. Maybe people from Hokkaido are different from the people in Kyushu. Like on Samsø, people from the North Island, they are very different from the people on the South Island. Actually, the North Island people, they are a little bit funny. alternative thinking and interesting in many ways. So this is a learning lesson for me also, that communication has to be formulated so we understand it where we are. The conditions are not the same. The condition on the North Island and the South Island on Samsø seems to you like it must be the same. Such a little island, but it's not. We have two different dialects. We have family relations that are completely different from this also. So I think that we have to go down to the very, very local level and talk to each other in the way we understand, and at levels where it's also acceptable by local communities. And thereby, it's also an argument for decentralized energy production, because we can have a system for the North Island and we can have a different system from the South Island that can be accepted. And they don't have to be the same. Maybe the prices don't have to be the same. We can even accept that prices are different if we understand why. But if it's a national top-down system, we expect to have the same rights everywhere. Maybe that's not easy. So the story about this is that we try to reverse the thinking of think global and act local. We like to say think and act local. Because it's okay for the bigger perspective to think global. But in our case, I think it's very important that we think local. To understand what we need to do, we have to think about what we can do and what our obligation is and what our capacity is. Maybe we can send somebody like me out to speak to the global community, so I can have some information and can bring it back to the local community. But we are responsible for what we do locally. And if we do something good, I'm sure that Ida Titsunari, he will find out very quickly, because internet is there, fast-moving information systems is there. So if we do anything interesting, it'll be in Japan in like 10 seconds. So we don't have to consider this so much, because it will be adapted if it works. So we have to make it work. That's our responsibility. We made a master plan to fulfill this ambition. The master plan included technology and financing and how to get closer to community communication and all these sort of things. The master plan was good because we could always refer to the master plan. We didn't have to discuss every detail because it was already kind of finalized in the master plan for the next 10 years development. So my advice here is that to make a master plan for all of Japan and then boil it down to make local regional master plans for the local areas in Hokkaido and Kyushu and other areas. So we have kind of a recipe or a step-by-step plan we can talk about. It has to be based on proven technology and has to include an action plan so we know what will happen. Otherwise, we will start a new discussion. Every time there's a new decision, we have to discuss it again and again, and we'll get nowhere. We'll be in the visionary area. We need to go down to the action area and where we can actually do things. We have to define the problems, because if we don't know the problems of the project, we will kind of hit the wall every now and again, and we have to start all over in the planning, because the wall or the barrier or what is hindering us in doing the right thing is maybe the most important thing to be aware of. The possibilities, it's always nice to talk about the possibilities and the vision and the things we want to do. That is nice. It's a nice atmosphere to be in. But when we meet the problems, we disagree and we argue. So I think it's very nice and very good to see the problems. The problems are actually the core of the next action. Ownership is interesting for the realization. If you don't define the ownership, but that's out in the open, and if it's a free market thing, then I think it's going to be complicated. So it's a mix of free market and organized structures. Otherwise, realization will be depending on the market, and if the market is not there, nothing will happen. And then we see transformation when you have all these things in order. So 10 years later on Samsø in 2007, 2008, mission was completed. We were then exporting about 80 million kilowatt hours per year to the mainland. So we were stop importing and now exporting, and we have invested about $78 million in that time span in just 10 years. And that is amongst 4,000 people. That is quite a high amount of money per capita. Of course, this is Denmark, and you cannot compare that with other places, and we're not supposed to do that. But anyway, it's still a low-income area. So $78 million per capita is a very, very high number. But the interesting thing here, it's all bankable. So we rented the money in the bank and invested this money in energy technologies, and the savings and the sale of energy is paying for the mortgage rent. So we are better off today than we were before we started this project. And we have the tax incomes from the jobs we created in the community as well. We created local jobs, which is interesting. You have a lot of opposition to renewable energy. Also in Japan, people are saying it's not reliable, it's fluctual, there's many different disadvantages in renewable energy. And these are mainly excuses because you don't know what's in it. We have a lot of conservative people on Samsø, but when they had a job in the system, it was a sudden transformation. And the job kind of created green people. In the beginning, people thought that green energy is only for hippies. I don't know if is there any hippies here in the room? There's one over there, yes. Any other volunteers? Oh, there's another one here. We have a few hippies here, but most of the people don't consider themselves as being hippies. So that means that there's no green people here. Or I think the transformation comes when you can see some practical implementing happening in front of you, and you can see what's in it for me. And you can see your job here, you can see your business thriving because of this, and then gradually you turn green. Not from envy, but from prosperous possibilities. The CO2 reduction is interesting also. Every citizen on Samsø today has a minus 3.7 tons emission of CO2, which is interesting. That's good. It's quite good. The average Danish emission is about 10 tons per capita, so we are 13.7 tons better than average Denmark. That's good, but that's not funny on Samsø. Nobody talks about it. Nobody is impressed by that, because we are talking much more about how much we save on the yearly energy bill and how much energy we produce and sell. So the income is interesting. What we can get out of it is much more interesting than the CO2 emission. Carbon dioxide is kind of abstract in many ways, but you can see it's a good measurement. How did we do it? All right, we tried to educate people, because when this is happening, while this is happening, we have to educate the people so they know what the next step is. One of the big barriers is lack of knowledge and lack of know-how. If you don't know what you're doing here, then nothing will happen. If you know what you're doing, you can act according to your knowledge. So that's why we have to raise the awareness and capacity building on the island and the local communities. As soon as you have learned something, it seems to be easy. You all know that. Before you knew it, before you learned it, everything seemed to be complicated. So this is also a step in the development, that you have to educate all the activists and the people and the plumbers and the trade people in this business. We used a lot of time educating people. In the beginning, we thought that people would just lean over and say, thank you very much, but they didn't. What they didn't know of, they said no to immediately, just to be sure. So how did we do it again? Well, you can say in many ways we just did it. It's sometimes about doing things and getting your hands on it that creates the next generation of entrepreneurs. If you leave it to scientists and engineering and all these sort of things, it's out of your reach and you don't really understand it, and you have a tendency to wait for somebody to do it for you, so you can be a customer in the shop. Where we try to reverse this and say, you are responsible for the next step, so you're also creating your own future. So even small things, these guys, they are exploiting the methane gas from a local dump, and they drilled holes and they took the methane out, and they fueled a little 15 kilowatt electric generator with the gas, and they produced electricity for the grid. So they were kind of suddenly producing energy out of methane gas from a local dump. Not a big thing for the world economy, but certainly a very fun thing for local entrepreneurs. And if you have a lot of these things, it'll end up being a good project anyway. And the simple elements of this is harvesting energy from wind, sun, and biomass. Don't make it rocket science and complicated. It is actually quite easy when it comes to the basic the details of it. Well, why did we do it? We think about ourselves as being vulnerable citizens in a community where we need some action. We want to have a good life. We want to have an income so we can feed our children and our families and have a reasonably good life. So survival of the island, it could be survival of the community in general, is one important driver for this action. We want to improve the local economy, and we want to be more independent. When we started our venue or our project here, we were about $30. I think we had about $30 on the world market on the oil price. 10 years later, in 2007, the oil price was $130. So, I mean, we gained so much from the investment we made 10 years earlier to meet the rising oil prices. So I have to speed up a little bit because I can see I'm behind schedule here. Energy democracy, the way we talk about this is interesting. When you own a share in a wind turbine, it looks better. It even sounds better. You have a lot of opposition to wind power today, but that is because it's big development now. It's big business. And you have a developer who wants to erect 200 megawatt outside your windows, and people hate that. We have a survey in Denmark saying that 96% of all Danish people, they like wind power and also like to have more wind power in Denmark. But there's just this one thing, not in my backyard. How can you change not in my backyard to in my backyard? Change the NIMBY to IMBY. You can do it by ownership. You see a guy who has bought shares in a wind turbine, he'll talk in a very positive way about this wind turbine because it's his, he's part of it. So, just to boil it down, we like to think that we are on a very good trip. I'll skip some of the slides here just to make room for the next speaker. What we have done is that we want to share this, maybe with Japan. We had a talk with Tetsu Ida Tetsunari and ICEP yesterday about creating energy academies, global energy academies, where we talk to each other about how we can share this and rebuild communities in a more positive way than we do today. It is not the local community's responsibility that the global market is out of control, but it's the local community's responsibility to make what they can locally. And we have to share this information. And we can do that by creating local energy academies. And I think we should do that. And Samsø Energy Academy is a place where people of all nations can share ideas about energy and how it's made and how it's used. And we try to do that in a very positive and a very interesting way for people. We have about 6,000 visitors every year on Samsø from international communities. And just a month ago, we had the former Prime Minister Khan. He was visiting Samsø with a delegation. And we had a very good talk, very informal and very interesting about future cities in Japan and how we could develop things like that. We'd like to say that we work in 3 platforms. Say that we have the European global. We need to be something out there in the world, to be something in the national policy, to be something local. It actually turns this way. If we are not recognized in the global context, local national politicians in Denmark have a tendency to forget about us. If we are famous in Japan, it's such a thrill to me to go home, to be here and tell my local politicians, I had a presentation in Japan, I had a visit from the former Prime Minister Khan in Samsø, then they think, oh, Samsø must be interesting. So this is things we do all the time. We also included in many European projects. These are just a lot of funny names, but these are European projects where Samsø is partner. We also partner in projects with Iceland and other places, and we like these connections because then we learn a lot and we are part of the national community and we can actually do a little bit of a difference there. So we think in networks. Networks is the key to kind of gain information, to gain interest, and to be updated and have the latest information about what to do here, and also to have the attention of people so we can learn and be part of these processes. So to finalize my presentation, I'll just say that what is also interesting is that this is a process leading to new visions. We want in Denmark, or in Samsø, in Denmark in 2050, the energy vision is to be fossil independent. On Samsø, we have said that we can do that faster. We'll do it in 2030 and fuel the ferry and the cars with alternative energy too. So we have made a new master plan, a fossil-free energy island, an intelligent island system. We will do that in close cooperation with Japan. So I just finalize my speech here by saying that you should come to Samsø. As I come to Japan, I enjoy being here because there's so many interesting things going on, and you should kind of just look at yourself and see how innovative you are here in Japan. And come to Japan and see how much we like that and how much we actually thrive from it. And if you do so, I'm sure that the media will follow you closely and document what you have been doing here. And if you do that, you'll see politicians bend over and say, okay, if you're in Time magazine, you must be doing something good. The attention, I mean, the media is so interesting in this area. They follow the good stories, and if there's a good story here, you'll have support from politicians. If you say that the politicians are arrogant and stupid and don't pay attention to what the good thing is, they'll also kind of turn their back to you. You have to include them in the positive story about what is happening here. So for me, it's just to say that I think Japan is in a paradigm here where you have the greatest opportunity to make a change, and I can see that the changes are everywhere in every corner of Japan, just waiting for somebody to put a little water on it so you can see it blossom. So thank you very much, and good luck with the process.
Thank you very much. Actually, a few weeks ago, this sort of the children's book, which is titled The Welcome to Samso Island. So he is actually the protagonist in this picture book. And there is going to be a talk show from the 4:30 tomorrow. But of course, that the main sort of participants who are here today, please attend ours. But also the members or the audience of the Ustream, please go to his presentation tomorrow, 4:30. So the final speaker is from JREF, Thomas Corberell, Executive Board Chair of JREF, is going to give the final closing of the first session.
Dear participants, thank you all for being here and for thereby contributing to the important tasks of changing Japan's energy future for something better. I would also like to thank all the speakers, in particular Søren, for contributing to the learning necessary to be able to act. A year has passed since the earthquake, tsunami, and the moment when true cost of nuclear power was revealed to Japan and to the world. Half a year has passed for me as Executive Board Chair of JREF, an exciting period and a period that has given me some lessons of Japan. I've come to like the life in Tokyo, enjoying the hospitality and politeness of my colleagues, friends, and people in the streets. I've come to enjoy the beauty of the parks and nature, and I've come to admire the efficiency of Tokyo's public transport system. I have also tried to understand Japanese politics, but so far I do not understand Japanese politics. I have also begun to understand, but not to admire, the Japanese energy system. I have seen how Japan already before the accident a year ago had high electricity prices, high costs of electricity production, and less than average environmental performance of the energy sector. Already then, there were a lot of opportunities for improvements. At present, electricity generation in this country is extremely expensive based on oil and gas used in inefficient power plants on the margin. There are enormous opportunities for environmental improvements at the same time as costs are reduced and the wealth and competitiveness of Japan is improved. So starting where we are now is a good start. You can make things a lot better. In the efficient subway system of Tokyo, a lot of people take a lot of steps. in a well-organized way to together achieve very efficient transportation. There are signs saying, do not rush, but everybody hurries and it becomes extremely effective. A year has passed since the Fukushima accident, and I have seen no signs of people rushing too fast in the renewable energy development. But I'm beginning to be a little concerned that we need to hurry up. We meet in this conference for more talking, but it's time to start walking. It is not only a matter of thinking and planning. We need to start doing things. It is a task for all individuals, for households, for new companies, for old, small companies, and large industries to contribute to this development. And I do see that there are many intelligent, well-informed, often young people, even in the largest industries in Japan, who are taking new steps, contributing at least for the preparation of this development. And as we see around us a world, as Adnan showed earlier, where renewable energy is developing at high pace, not only in Europe and the United States, also now in China, where 1.5 windmill is built every hour, day and night throughout the year, where they now have more solar water heaters per capita than Europe, and where the installation of solar PVs increased something like by a factor 15 from the first quarter of last year till the last quarter of last year. And also to areas in India, Latin America, where renewable energy development is accelerating. There are ample opportunities for Japan and for Japanese industry in this development. But many people must take the first steps. I read a week ago that Minister Edano had said that for the coming summer, Japan needed to put 10 nuclear reactors online to avoid a power crunch. I'm not convinced that 10 reactors or 10 gigawatt of new electricity is actually needed, but I'm certain that if you need 10 gigawatt, those 10 gigawatt do not necessarily have to be nuclear. 10 gigawatt of solar power would also contribute to peak load when the sun is shining and electricity consumption for cooling as it's at its highest. And 10 gigawatt of solar, that would be 1 solar panel per Japanese household. Not more. I have much more on my roof back in Sweden. 10 gigawatt of solar power would also be covering something like 10 or 20% of the areas evacuated around Fukushima after the nuclear accident. Things can be done by a lot of individuals contributing to the needs of the country. Possibly the most important political process going on at the moment is the implementation of the regulation of feed-in tariffs. The fact that feed-in tariffs were promised half a year ago but not yet implemented has meant that few have dared or wanted to do anything when it comes to grid-connected new renewable energy electricity production. Many are waiting for the rules and the tariffs to be set. I would like to emphasize that an important experience from all over the world is that in such a legislation, it is not the tariffs that are the most important thing. The price is not the only nor the most important thing that decides whether investments and new renewable electricity production will take place. Much more important are the rules and regulations that says that new investors producing renewable electricity will get access to the market, that they will be connected to the grid in a predictable, fair way, on fair economic conditions, that the planning permission process is predictable and reasonably fast, that environmental impact discussions are also done in a way that's predictable and reasonably fast. The success in this part is just as important as the conditions for the efficiency of the Tokyo subway. The Tokyo subway is accessible, there are corridors, staircases, escalators, efficient ways of paying for your travel with Pasmo cards functioning all over. I'm impressed. The timetables are predictable for the trains. If the regulation of the electricity and energy markets in Japan are as well designed and well implemented as the subway of Tokyo, a lot of people will be able to take constructive steps to contribute to efficient, low-cost, renewable energy supply to Japan. It is not only a matter of the price of traveling on the subway, it's also a matter of making access convenient and instructions good. There is often in the subway system signs, do not rush, but the most important signs are those who tell where to walk to make it efficient, and the infrastructure providing clear opportunities for speedy and efficient use of the system. Let us hope something similar is realized in the electricity market regulation. Once again, I would like to thank all the speakers that have spoken. I would also like to thank all the speakers that have accepted to come to Tokyo for this conference and who will contribute with presentations during the rest of this conference. I know that many of the speakers are excellent speakers with important knowledge to convey. I thank all the people who are here listening and those who are listening on the internet, and I hope that you will have an enjoyable conference. But for me, it's important to point out that this conference is not for intellectual satisfaction. It's to be the basis for real-world action. We shouldn't rush, but it's certainly time to hurry up. Thank you. And I should say, there is now a 1-hour break, and we'll meet again at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
That concludes keynote speeches. We are going to have about 60 minutes break. Guest speakers, the lunch is prepared for you, so please go back to the speaker's room. And participants, there is the lunch box sold in the foyer, so please utilize that. This hall is going to be closed until 1 o'clock. So door opens 12:45. Door opens 12:45. Please don't leave anything behind, anything valuable. Thank you.
Speakers, we would like to take 60 minutes break from now. This venue will be closed for the preparation for the next program. Lunch will be served at the lunchroom for the guests and the speakers. For the participants, lunchbox is available for the fee at the foyer for your convenience. The next program will start from 13 hours. The door will open at 12:45. Please take all the belongings with you. Thank you very much.